Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about a policy change that I made on the channel to kind of bring the channel a little bit more in line with my own personal, ethics, views, whatever you'd like, and because I think it's a way that we as a consumer can make the world a slightly better place. So, first off, I want to thank my Patreon patrons for making the channel possible. You all are amazing. Next thing, one of the things that I've become increasingly sort of radicalized about, if you will, is the idea of right to repair. Right to repair, for those of you who haven't heard the term, and I've been talking about it a little bit more lately, but I feel it much more strongly, is the idea that if you buy a piece of equipment, if you buy a tool, if you buy a car, if you buy a tractor, if you buy a flashlight, if you buy anything, you should be able to fix it. And this means many different things, right? It means that manufacturers should make parts available for things, right? You should be able to buy a new computer, for instance, for your car, without having to go through the dealer or something like that, right? You should be able to buy parts for the items that you own because you should be able to repair them. This allows you to continue, keeping that thing in service for many, many years in theory, and allows skilled repair people to do that work. That's really important. It also means design for repair, right? It is very possible to design something in a way that, you sell all the parts, but it's almost impossible to get into it without proprietary tools, right? Apple, with its pentalobulus screws, has been a major pain in the neck about this, where they've designed a brand new screw standard. Are you a pentalobe? Yes, you are. Here's a little pentalobe screw, and the only reason that this exists is because screw you. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about here. And also just, it means policies that are friendly towards this, right? And this is something that is, I've been advocating for many years on the channel, right? Companies that have policies like, the moment you disassemble your pocket knife, the warranty is void. This may or may not be legal thanks to the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act and here in the U.S. I'm not a lawyer, talk to a lawyer. But nonetheless, it's a problem, right? And these are things that I've always been a pain about. But one of the areas that I have sort of looked at, and by the way, if you're curious to learn more about right to repair, well, just Google those words, or follow Louis Rossman, who's one of the strongest advocates for right to repair. Look at, folks like iFixit is a company that's been doing a lot of work in this space who I really appreciate. There are a bunch of people who are working on this, but I think it is a major issue for our time because it is a major environmental issue, meaning less e-waste goes out into the world when you can repair something that could have otherwise just been chucked away, right? It's a pro-consumer issue because you can keep using a tool much longer if you're able to replace parts of it and get parts and things like that. It's just generally a good thing for the world, right? It may not be as good a thing for the bottom line as pushing out a product which is defective by design and which people cannot repair, so they'll have to buy a new one every couple of years, which, let's be real here, that's the reason this is a problem at all. The shareholders like the former, the environment, and the consumer likes the other. Anyways, I digress. But this is a major problem that we're dealing with. One area that I have kind of neglected it, I've often mentioned it during my reviews, but I've tolerated, is in the flashlight game. So flashlights are sort of a solved problem, right? For a long time, we have had the idea for flashlight of you take a housing, you put a battery of some kind in it, that housing contains everything but the power, and then when you turn the thing on, right, you get light out the front of it, and when the battery goes bad, you can replace that. And that is important because not only does this allow you to replace batteries multiple times, for instance, during a day, if you go through all of your juice, the first one, it also allows you to replace the battery when it dies. This is, by the way, the JetBeam RRT01. And batteries do die. That is a very important thing to remember. I am not aware of a kind of battery, and chemists, let me know down in the comments where I'm wrong, but in common consumer use, there are no batteries that are permanent. There are no batteries that do not lose capacity after a while. If you continue cycling a battery, continue charging it, or if you mistreat it in some way or another, you are going to end up in a situation where your battery no longer holds enough charge or no longer holds the same amount of charge it used to, right? This is important. This is one of the reasons why batteries need to be replaceable. And so for many flashlights throughout the years, batteries have been, whether it was a bunch of D cells, whether it was an 18650 in the middle of it, right? This was a good system, and it is a good system, and it remains such because batteries can be recycled when they're dead, right? And then you can just replace with a new battery and everything is just back to normal, right? So this is a thing that we can do. Unfortunately, the flashlight world has seen an uptick in non-replaceable batteries. In some cases, it almost feels reasonable, right? This little guy right here from, this is the Nightcore Tiny 2. I almost get it in this because this form factor is so small that putting a replaceable battery in here might not work. It might not be a possibility. And so if we want this form factor, we might have to make that compromise. This is a relatively cheap light, so it's like, okay, I guess, sure, maybe, why not? Same thing maybe with the Tip SE. But as we get into larger lights, this is the Nitecore T4K or the TM10K 10,000 lumens flashlight. These are lights that could potentially use a regularly sized cell. And as a matter of fact, I believe it is the case that inside this there is a regular sized cell. I forget exactly what size, but it is soldered in place such that it cannot be replaced. And so all of these lights, and then this guy, for instance, this is the Olight Marauder. This is not a light which I am aware of a way to replace the battery for. It could be that Olight is able to, specifically sell you a new version, and you can sell it out there. But nonetheless, there are a lot of batteries, lights out there that take proprietary batteries or make it very, very difficult for the consumer to make those swaps themselves, right? And this is a problem in many cases. So, for instance, Nitecore, I asked about this particular issue, and they said, oh, well, we're very happy to replace, if the battery dies in your light, we're very happy to replace that at the factory. You just need to send it back to us in China. And, that's nice. I appreciate that, and that's some reassurance. But the problem is, how long is Nitecore going to be around? And more importantly, how long is Nitecore going to be around in a format that's willing to honor prior battery claims, right? Sometimes companies get bought out, and the new company's like, yeah, we just wanted the name, not the liability. So lawyers, can you make these people go away? And they find some way, right? That's kind of ugly. Or, maybe the company goes away, or maybe they just run out of parts, right? And so relative to, well, I took out the 18650 and I put in a new one, there is a lot of risk there, right? And so as a result, we end up with this class of lights that are basically designed for the trash can. Eventually, these lights will need a new battery, and you will not be able to buy them because they're not being produced, because they are not being serviced by the manufacturer, right? I wish all of these companies a very long life, but it is a problem, right? And it's not a problem that we need to have. Maybe at this kind of a form factor, we might need to have it, right? I can survive that. But especially when we get into these bigger lights, I don't think so. And recently, I got a message from a manufacturer who wanted to send me a flashlight in a really interesting and different form factor, right? And it had all the things you would want, like a nice output, a nice form factor, all of those good things, except that the battery was soldered in. And they gave me the usual song and dance of, oh yeah, if you want to do that down the road, you can just mail it to the factory. And like, yeah. And I ended up telling them no, and I've decided I want to just generalize that. I am no longer going to be accepting gear, or frankly reviewing gear, that does not have replaceable batteries, certainly in the flashlight domain. And it's going to be a major constraint I think about as I review things in consumer electronics as well, right? Reparability is important, and if you cannot replace the battery, if you can't buy the part and do it yourself, that's gonna be a problem. It's been a problem. It's been in the ugly for a long time, right? I think that was in the ugly for probably all of these. This guy never got a review. I ended up just mostly buying this for myself, and, yeah. But nonetheless, it is kind of a problem. It's not something I like to see, and I like to see companies who would just design it around the conventional cell that you might be able to find from somebody else except the manufacturer. So in the future, I am not going to be reviewing lights that have no replaceable battery. I might make some exceptions for form factors that are very, very small here, where it might not be feasible to use an off-the-shelf battery size. That's certainly the case. And again, in consumer electronics, we might not have a choice. This is a battle that still needs to be won, or frankly, begun. Consumer electronics level. If you want, pocket wireless headphones, you're probably not getting replaceable batteries there necessarily. That's something we need to do as a society, but nonetheless, in the flashlight world, this is easy to solve. And one of the ways that I'm going to try and solve it is by not giving them airtime. So anyways, all of this is a very roundabout way to say that this is something you should be thinking about. Whenever you purchase a piece of gear, whether it's a set of expensive headphones, I talked about this with the AirPods Max or whatever. I'll be talking about it in my review of the AirPods Pro 2, which, oh boy, speaking of right to repair, we got some questions there. And I've mentioned it in a bunch of my flashlight reviews in the past, but this is a thing you should think about, right? How easy will it be to repair this, even in the watch world? Right? When you have really fancy movements from really high-end companies, is there anyone else in the world who can service and get the parts, or are those being controlled to increase the the payout, right? Is that a thing? But this is a thing you should be thinking about, and it is a thing I am thinking about, and it is a thing that I am, more importantly, making decisions based on, and it's a thing that's going to be controlling a little bit more the kinds of stuff that makes it to my table. I want my channel to be a place where you go to see some of the very best gear and some of the most notable gear. In the case where it may be really interesting, maybe not the best. I don't want my channel to be a place where, there's stuff on there that I really can't recommend, and I'm getting to the point in the flashlight game where I'm just having trouble recommending something that is planned to die, that is going to be e-waste. Just give it a little bit of time. So that's kind of my take from here. Let me know in the comments how you feel about, not necessarily my decision, the decision's made, but how do you feel about this issue? Is this a thing you think about? Do you have any recommendations for replaceable battery lights in interesting form factors? Do you have any other thoughts on this kind of thing? Any favorite right to repair resources? Let me know down below. But this is a little plan, and it just figured it was worth actually talking about. So hope this has been interesting to you, that it lit up your life, and that you got a real charge from this discussion, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. I sadly can't fix the jokes at the end of the videos. Should probably look into that. Have a good one, everybody. Bye now.